Hello, BookTube. Holy Nimbus of Light here. How you doing? Thought I'd stop in from heaven with your daily mail haul. We have a bunch of packages here, and I can't help but notice that the last of the packages, there are no boxes, but the last of the packages is another gigantic envelope that is once again leaking, flaking asbestos. So I'm hoping that's not a trend, but we'll get to that last. It's by far the biggest one. So let's see what we have in the meantime. First one is from W.W. Norton. They are one of my all-time favorite publishers. What have we got here? Oh, it's a paperback. It's a paperback release of one of my favorite books from last year. Fantastic. Okay, great. This is, I've recommended it to you all already. I wonder if I am blurbed on it. Wouldn't that be nice if Steve were blurbed on it? Well, I can find out on my own later. This is by Bruce Schneier, and it is called Click Here to Kill Everybody. Now in a paperback. So this paperback comes out in now. It comes out this week. And this is terrific. Absolutely terrific. So I highly recommend it. Since its birth in the 1970s and 80s, the internet has accelerated towards greater connectivity between an ever-increasing number of devices. The internet now links not only computers and phones, but also cars, medical devices, power plants, manufacturing equipment, tractors, refrigerators, toys, and more. This is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things. Which I believe last time when we got this book originally prompted a rant from me. I will give you the short version of that rant. If you have smart technology in your house, disable it and then throw it away. Don't disable it and leave it there, because I guarantee you it's still listening to you. It's still harvesting data from you. If you have one of those rhomboid things that roves around the floor, allegedly cleaning, it does not actually clean, but allegedly cleaning, the device is only there to map your house, measure your energy output, and listen to everything you say. If you have one of those pylon electronic valets that, Siri or whatever, that you call out its name and you ask it some sort of question or you give it some sort of command. If you have a smart thermometer in your house all set up so that when you're on your way home you can tell your house to start raising the temperature, or you have a smart convection oven or something like that, anything that has smart in front of it, disable it. And don't just disable it, also physically remove it from your home. But anyway, the Internet of Things. That's what the Internet of Things is. And it's a lot more than just as the devices listed in this pub sheet. It's also everything else, including satellites, power grids. You don't want anything like that in your house. You don't need it at all. So turn off notifications on all of your apps. Turn off your microphones and cameras when you're not using them on any of your devices. Depower them on devices where you don't use them. And get rid of the listening smart technology that is around you, that is all around you. Get rid of it. Trust me, even if you go into the operations manual and look under the instructions for how to disable the listening function, those instructions are lies. They only tell you part of how you disable. There is a backup that does not disable. It is still listening to you. You need to just pack it up and put it out on the sidewalk. Or better yet, in deference to the well-being of your fellow citizens, take it out back and destroy it with a rock. Don't put it in somebody else's house. But anyway, this is the Internet of Things, and it promises to deliver the speed and convenience of smart technology to every corner of our lives. But there is a darker side to the Internet of Things. Security risks, from previously unthinkable levels of surveillance to lethal new forms of terrorism the world has never seen before. And in this book, which comes out in paperback, the date is October 8th, but that it could be any day. It'll be soon, or it'll be in your bookstores already, although I don't think so, because I was at a Barnes & Noble today, and I didn't see this in trade paperback. I think I would have noticed it. I looked at the paperback new release tables, specifically to see if there was any Star Trek. There wasn't that I could see. Traditionally, the most prevalent cyber threat has been the theft of or destruction of data. These attacks, such as the 2017 hack of Equifax that allowed thieves to steal the Social Security numbers and personal data of more than 145 million Americans, could be massive in scope, but they rarely represented an existential threat to their victims. The Internet of Things changes that. In the age of ubiquitous internet, security researchers, government agents, and hackers have stalled moving automobiles, attempted to control implanted medical devices, and succeeded, not just attempted, they've also succeeded in doing that. Accessed the GPS equipment on ships at sea, exploded oil pipelines, and destroyed machines processing fissionable nuclear materials. Even minor attacks can produce cascading effects. In 2003, a massive blackout covered the northeastern United States and eastern Canada, leaving 60 million people without power. Though the computers directly controlling the power grid were not attacked, computers critical to the sounding of the alarm in case of failure were possibly knocked out by a worm. And so on and so forth. The book gives you a really, I mean, there are a lot of books that ring this alarm bell, but the reason that I'm recommending this one is because it does so in a very readable, wonderful way. But this affects everybody, unless you live in a yurt on the plains of the of Mongolia. This affects you. In fact, even there, it affects you, because if you live in a yurt in the plains of Mongolia, you are very much vulnerable to a nuclear reactor 300 miles away going rogue without anyone even knowing it. It's insane the extent to which the Internet of Things has spread, has proliferated everywhere. You're surrounded by it, I'm surrounded by it, and the more we are aware of it, the better. And there are books like this that come at it from all sorts of different angles. This one comes at it from the existential threat angle, like the pub sheet said. A lot of others come at it from a different angle. Like, for instance, the Internet of Things, the reason that it proliferates, the reason why these devices are everywhere, and the reason why people consider them profitable to make and sell and buy and implement, is because of the slipshod way that we still think of data, our own data. You are an assemblage of data, and that is the most valuable thing you have. Not your labor anymore, not your intelligence anymore, not your creativity anymore. Your data is the most important currency that you have, and you generate it. It comes from you. It doesn't exist without you, which means you ought to control it and benefit from it financially. And you don't right now. Not even close. Not even close. The few people out there in the world, Jaron Lanier is one of them, but there are a few others. The few people out there in the world who are trying to raise awareness, trying to tell people, look, your data is yours. It belongs to you. You create it. And you're giving it away for nothing. You're giving it away actually to your own detriment. There are books that come at the Internet of Things from that angle as well. It's all utterly fascinating. But this is going to be in paperback in your bookstores. This is probably hugely expensive. Yeah, $18. This is $18. If I remember, I will. I can't remember if I reviewed it or not. Maybe I didn't. Maybe that's not why I'm not blurbed on it. But if I did, I will remember to leave a link down below, because it's well worth your time. Even if you get it from the library, it's well worth your time to. Oh my. Okay. Okay, this next one I have been waiting for. I am going to have to wait a while longer because it's a 2020 release, but it is a fascinating 2020 release. This is Echo. The publisher Echo has an ongoing thing that they're doing called The Art of the Story, and it involves. At first, I didn't pay any attention to it, but it involves an increasingly interesting lineup of reprints of stories. And this certainly ranks right up there. This is coming out in early January of 2020. So start saving your pennies now, because this is going to be a beautiful thing. You're going to want it. It's going to be a $17 paperback, and this is A Sportsman's Notebook by Yvonne Turgenev. It has an introduction by Daniel Menudin, who is fantastic. He is he's a great writer. Alive today, and not an old man by any means. He works far more sparingly than I would like. I wish that there were a new thing by him every year, whether it was fiction or nonfiction. But he is going to do the preface to this new reprint of A Sportsman's Notebook. Okay, so this has this edition. Let's see here. It has an introduction by Max Egremont. Oh, burn. The preface isn't here yet. Oh, I kind of wanted to read that. Okay, so this is 25 beautifully written stories penned in exile, evocatively depicting life on a manor in feudal Russia and examining the conflict between serfs and landlords. That description is partially true. Turgenev wrote some of these things once he was in exile. He was in exile because of the first batch that he wrote, which he was not in exile when he wrote them. And the Russian authorities took a dim view of his portrait of serfdom and corrupt and debauched landed gentry and the general poverty and misery of the times. These are amazing. They're amazingly good, and it's amazingly interesting that Eco would do this. Would center on him. It's also a lovely addition, but that they would center on him as part of their art of a story thing. The only thing that's bothering me here is that I'm not seeing who translates this. Okay. This was originally published in 1992 in the Everyman's Library, and it's translated from the Russian by Charles and Natasha Hepburn. Fantastic. So this comes out in January. Great. Okay. Well, so we have a classic and a reprint. So let's move on here. We're doing fine. It probably won't be a short video. They never are they? I always claim. I'm sorry. I am one of those people. Fortunately, there are only a few of us on BookTube who really can't fall off a log without taking 30 minutes to natter your ear off. Sorry about that. Okay, this is another 2020 book. Mario Escobar is the name of the author. This is Children of the Stars by Mario Escobar. Looks like historical fiction. From international bestseller Mario Escobar comes a story of escape, sacrifice, and hope amid the perils of the Second World War. Jacob and Moses Stein live with their aunt in Paris until the great raid against foreign Jews is unleashed in August of 1942. Yes, you do not want to be someone named Jacob or Moses Stein in Paris in 1942. You do not want to be that. You don't probably even want to be Jacob or Moses Stein in Paris in 1939. But in 1942? No. No. Their parents, well-known German playwrights, have been hiding in France. But before their aunt manages to send them south, the gendarmes stop the boys and take them to, I know what this is going to be about. They take them to an internment camp where more than 4,000 children, 5,000 women, and 3,000 men had to subsist without food or water. Jacob and Moses manage to flee, but the road will not be easy or safe. This novel follows the two brave young Jewish boys as they seek refuge in the French town and eventually in Argentina. Okay, so this comes out in late February. I know a little bit about the history here, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to read the novel. I wonder, Mario Escobar is apparently an international star. Is this translated? Yes, it is. Yes. Okay, so... Oh, look at that. Okay. Children of the Stars is the name of the book, but when it came out in Spanish in 2017, it was called Children of the Yellow Star, which is a very, very different title. I wonder why the publisher changed that. Why would they change that? I mean, the Yellow Star is well known. It's a well-known feature of World War II. Why would you change that? Well, anyway, I mean, I don't agree with that, but so have any of you encountered Mario Escobar in Spanish? Did any of you encounter Children of the Yellow Star in Spanish when it came out in 2017? I'd love to hear about it. I'll read it anyway, of course. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, it's also from Norton, and it's fairly heavy. What have we got here? Oh my. Okay. All right. This comes out in March 2020. I am not reading any 2020 books in 2019. And I've noticed in recent mail hauls that some publishers are trying their hardest to tempt me. This is one of the strongest temptations yet. This is by Richard Frank, and it is called Tower of Skulls, A History of the Asia-Pacific War, Volume 1, July 1937 to May 1942. So we talk all the time on this channel about keyhole World War II histories. This is this is the opposite of a keyhole World War II history. This is a big sweeping narrative. Volume 1. Oh my. Norton is proud to present you with the next book from internationally acclaimed historian Richard Frank, the author of Guadalcanal and Downfall. This is the first book in a new 3-volume history of the Asia-Pacific War. Oh my. The first work in any language to present a unified account of the course and titanic impact of this part of the global war. The phrase Tower of Skulls dates back to 1938 when, quote, much of the world knew that flight and mass death were the defining characteristics of Japan's war in China. and it was a Japanese poet and nationalist, Yonejiro Noguchi, wrote to the Bengali poet Tagore to defend his nation's actions. Tagore, a polymath and the first non-Westerner to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913, denounced Noguchi's justifications for Japan's path in one searing sentence: "You are building your conception of an Asia which would be raised on a tower of skulls." Okay, so this covers everything from China and Singapore, the Philippines, Burma, as well as the attack on Pearl Harbor. Wow. All right. Steve is on board. So this comes out in March of 2020. I will certainly be reviewing it. I will certainly be reading it. I just won't be doing it yet. That's all. I am not doing anything from 2020 in 2019. I wonder how many more temptations there'll be as we go on here. We're now entering the cardboard section of our program. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, okay. This is an author that a lot of you know, a lot of you like. I really like this author. Don't particularly like books like this, but if there's anybody who can make this kind of thing work for me, it's this author. This comes out in late October, and it's by Andrew Roberts, and it's called Leadership in War: Essential Lessons from Those Who Made History. So, not actually a history, more ruminations. And, okay, the pub sheet starts off by reminding us that the New York Times said that his book, Churchill Walking with Destiny, was the best single-volume biography of Churchill yet written. And his latest book is a riveting comparison of 9 leaders who guided their nation through the greatest wars the world has ever seen, and his unique strengths and weaknesses shaped the course of human history. So who will they be? Julius Caesar? Genghis Khan? Adolf Hitler? Winston Churchill? Will they be portraits in here in heroism or not? Let's see. I know you're going to want to know that, so let's see. First one is Napoleon. Second is Horatio Nelson. Third is Winston Churchill. Fourth is Adolf Hitler, then Joseph Stalin, then George Marshall. That's a little bit of a surprise. Charles de Gaulle, Dwight Eisenhower, Margaret Thatcher. Oh my. Oh, I think we know what all of his interviewers are going to talk about when they talk about this book. And the last one is The Leadership Paradigm, which is, I assume it'll be an essay on leadership just in general. So this comes out right away. This is due in at the end of October. It's not a long thing. It won't take any time at all to read, so I probably put it at the front of the list here. Then we'll move on to this next one. It's Wafer Thin. And it's one of these things you have to literally tear it apart, like the gorilla in the American Tourister commercial. And then once you've torn it apart, you have to tear it into confetti, because all the individual pieces are still big enough to stick to things, including somebody's whiskers. I pulled something off Frida's whiskers just the other day. What have we here? Oh my. Oh, how strange. Okay. This has got to be another October release. Yes, it is. This comes out at the end of October. This is going to be a $17 hardcover. And it's, again, by an author that you all know. It's by Ken Follett. This is a work of nonfiction called A Short History of the Meaning of Cathedrals, Notre Dame. And the little note at the bottom there says that he will donate the proceeds of this book to the charity that is rebuilding Notre Dame. How fascinating. Is it illustrated? Yes, it is. It's illustrated. What a cute little volume. How wonderful. And by a guy who's done a whole lot of research on the cathedrals. So, in April 2019, the world watched in shock as flames threatened to devour Notre Dame Cathedral. Almost all of the world. The President of the United States didn't have anything to say about it. An enduring symbol of Parisian history, the cathedral was also a landmark architectural achievement. History never seemed so vulnerable or more essential to preserve. Among the watchers of this imminent catastrophe was international best-selling author Ken Follett, and in this book he describes the emotions that gripped him when he learned about the fire that endangered this center of European civilization. And they give a quote from him. The wonderful cathedral at Notre Dame de Paris was one of the greatest achievements of European civilization, and it was on fire. The sight dazed and disturbed us profoundly. I was on the edge of tears. Something priceless was dying in front of our eyes. The feeling was bewildering, as if the earth was shaking. Okay, so this is going to be in your bookstores. This comes out at the end of the month, and the proceeds go to a good cause. Wow, that's great. How good for him to do that. All right, and then we come to I don't know how I'm going to do this because it's already a danger to everyone around it. Then we come to this final envelope, which is just blasting away junk coming out of it at all sides. I wonder if there's any way that I can do this without making things worse. Okay, there is a pull tab. Let's see if we're very gentle about this. Let's see. Pull tabs never work. That's the problem with them. No, this one didn't work either. Okay, so can I get my finger in there without making this worse? No. No, it's pretty bad. Oh, God. Okay. Problem isn't just me. The problem is that I have to go after every little particle here because I have a little Swiffer of my own, a little living Swiffer of my own who's on the ground all the time. I don't want her breathing in any of this crap either. So what do we got here? Was it worth it? Oh, it was worth it. Oh my. Oh my. Publishers are trying really hard to tempt me to read 2020 books. This comes out right at the beginning of January. Look at the size of this thing. This is called The Napoleonic Wars by Alexander Mikaberedzi. The Napoleonic Wars, coming out from Oxford. That is what it's going to look like. Good Lord. Look at the size of the thing. The French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars have certainly kept historians busy over the last 200 years. Yes, to the point where you might wonder if there's any justification for a book like this. The scholarship of this era labors over the politics, opponents, and allies, generates countless biographies of Napoleon himself, put it mildly, and painstakingly explores Trafalgar, Leipzig, and Waterloo. But what of the impact in Buenos Aires, New Orleans, Alexandria? So you get a feel for this. This is going to be a global history. In this book, the author supplies the intercontinental context that is often missing from the Napoleonic canon, arguing that the Napoleonic Wars had far greater impact overseas than within Europe itself. Taking specific regions in turn, Mika Berezzi discusses major political and military events around the world. In Egypt, the wars led to the rise of Mehmed Ali and the emergence of a powerful state. In North America, the period transformed and enlarged the newly established United States. In South America, the Spanish colonial empire witnessed the start of national liberation movements that ultimately ended imperial control. Okay, all right, I am steadfast. I will not be reading this until the new year. But, boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, that sounds great. Okay, so, there, we are done. I once again have an enormous amount of cleaning up to do. But this was not a bad mail haul. So we have the Napoleonic Wars, a global history. Let's see if we can do this so that it doesn't come crashing down on us. Leadership in War. A few personal essays, biographical essays by Andrew Roberts, who's one of those authors who's always worth reading. So I don't so much care that it's not a big, huge history. Then Tower of Skulls, Volume 1 of a trilogy on the Pacific War, World War II. Children of the Stars, English language translation by Mario Escobar. A Sportsman's Notebook in a new edition, a new paperback from Echo. And Click Here to Kill Everybody in a paperback. Well worth your time if you're interested in the subject. And finally, Notre Dame by Ken Follett. Tiny little thing to help the cause of rebuilding Notre Dame. So there you go. So that is... where to put these without making things worse. That is our mail haul for today. Pretty good stuff. I'm going to clean up now before Frida inhales any of this crap. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.